Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to use a mixer board in a basic way. I know some of you may be gigging, especially for gigging musicians and people that are playing along, having to set up your own sound. Sometimes you go and play a gig and you have to take your own stuff, and I'm just going to show you some things that I've learned along the way. How to basically use your mixer board in a simple setup, pretty much for a solo musician, but you can use this for anything. Even if you have a duet, I'll just show you how to use the mixer board to the best of its ability so you can maximize your sound and sound the best that you can. Because sometimes it can be a pain to learn the songs, learn the material. That's already a lot, and then having to run your own music as well, run your own sound. That can be very confusing. It might not be a simple process. It can seem overwhelming at times, so I'm going to try to simplify that and show you how to use your equipment to the best of its ability. So here we go. Okay, so I've gone ahead and hooked up the microphone with this cable here. So this cable is going for the microphone. I'm going to put it into channel 1 into the mic input. And I've hooked up my main speaker, the gray one, with the other cable. And I've hooked it into the main output left. I usually run my shows in mono, so I just use one output and I just use the left output for the mono. So main left output is going to my main speaker, and I've also connected my monitor to aux send 1. So aux send, this is number 1 up here. Aux send 1, this is aux send 2. So aux send 1, I'm going to plug in the monitor. So if you notice here, the connection that I have going to the monitor, I'm using what they call a balanced cable. And you see that this has 3 sections to it, what they call the tip, the ring, and the sleeve. This is known as TRS, that's tip, ring, sleeve. And this is a balanced connection. Basically, this cable has 3 wires inside of it. And this is different from an instrument cable, which has just 2 sections. This just has the tip and the sleeve. So this is known as a TS connection. This is unbalanced. And this is a TRS connection. This is a balanced connection. This is like a microphone cable. A microphone cable also has 3 cables inside of it. This cable, a balanced connector, is going to be used when you have to run long distances. And the reason we use balanced connectors is to reduce the possibility of interference in the signal. Using a 2-wire system, this works very much like an antenna would with 2 wires. So it's going to pick up extra signals. Whereas a balanced connector is less likely to do so. You won't pick up any interference. If you run by a power cable, it won't pick up that hum. So if you're running long distances, you want to use a balanced connector. Now here I'm just running it to right there, so it's not a big deal. They say if you're going to run it between 20 and 25 feet or more, you want to use a balanced connector to reduce noise in the signal. So this is not working like an antenna running along the ground, picking up external frequencies and noise and then amplifying it. So I'm using a balanced connector here into aux1 and just a regular instrument cable. Usually we just use instrument cables, which is a TS connector on instruments, because usually you're just going 10 feet or so with it. So that's the difference between a balanced and an unbalanced connector. Balanced is going to be basically noise-free, whereas an unbalanced connector may invite noise. So now that we have everything hooked up, my 2 instruments, my one instrument, my guitar, and my microphone. I've got my monitor hooked up now to my aux send 1. I've got the main hooked up to the main output left. Now I'm ready to go. So when we power the system up, also when you plug in your power cables, notice that I have all of them plugged into the same power strip. This is going to reduce what they call a ground loop, the possibilities for a ground loop, and 40 cycle hum or 60 cycle hum, which is a noise issue you can get when you plug stuff into different plugs in a room. Let's say you plugged in your main speaker into an output on one side, and then you plugged in your mixer board to a plug that's nearby on the wall, and they're 2 different plugs and they're connected to different circuits in the building. It may produce a ground loop and cause this hum that sounds something like, and it'll be annoying and you can't get rid of it. It'll just be heard in the speakers. So in order to eliminate this possibility for a ground loop, always try to plug in all of your equipment to the same source or the same plug. In this case, I have 1 power strip and I'm plugging everything into there. So when you're ready to turn on your equipment, first you want to turn on the mixer. And, well, the power strip first, of course. So we have to turn on the power strip, and then we turn on the mixer. And looks like it has come on. Very good. And you want to turn on the mixer first and then your speakers, because when you turn on your mixer, it usually has this pop, and you don't want that pop to come out through the speakers because it can damage the coils over time. So you turn on the mixer first and then you power up your speakers. So I'm going to power up the speakers now. So you can see here the light's on down there. That one's on, and this one's on. So everything is on now. Everything's powered up. So everything's quiet. So at the beginning, notice that I always have all of my channels muted. I pull all the sliders down. On the channels that I'm using, now I already have these set up because I played gigs recently last night. So, but we're going to start from scratch and pretend. So when you're setting it up originally, what you want to do for the first time is you want to turn all of your trim knobs all the way down. You want to square up all of your EQs. Turn down any compression if you have that. Make sure your pan knobs are straight up at 12 o'clock or in center position. Maybe even turn down all of the effects. We'll go ahead and turn the effects down also. And now we're ready to start. So the typical way that a mixer board does, what it does is it mixes the signal. It takes several input signals and mixes them down into one signal, or in this case a couple of signals, because this is a stereo mixer, so it's mixing it into a left channel and a right channel. So basically it's just mixing things and putting them together. And the basic premise of how it works, a mixer board works from top to bottom and from left to right. So as the signal comes into the microphone, it processes it here with any gain, and this is a low cut button. I'll explain what this does in a minute. And then it goes through the compression, and then it EQs it, and then it sends it into the aux sends, and then the panning, and then finally the fader. This is your last bit. So it processes it from top to bottom, and it's going to process these signals from left to right. So it's going to add all of these signals together, sum them up, and then that's what you get on your mains. So on this particular board, I've got some effects, so we'll talk about how to set the effects up also, and what kind of effects to use, and how to set up the channel when you're first setting it up. So now we're ready to set up the microphone and get our gain staging correct. So basically when you do gain staging is you want to set the input level of your inputs, the gain. And that is, I'm sending a signal into here with the microphone. I'm also setting a signal in with the guitar. And when I send the signal in, I want to make sure that the signal coming into the mixer board is something that the mixer board can handle. It's at, I guess, an ideal range. And that is, I want it to get close to here on my pre-fader level, on my level meter up to 0. That's going to be where it's standard. So on this particular board, I have this button that has PFL. This is going to be your level set. So I have this to press down for level set. And when I hit these buttons, I can activate which channels I want to level set. In this case, I'm going to level set the microphone first, so I'm going to do this one first. And the level set basically is a pre-fader level. It's going to tell you what the gain is on that channel before the fader. The fader is only going to control what goes out to the main outputs. The gain setting is going to allow you to change the gain of the channel so you can control what's actually coming into the mixer board. It will, on this PFL, will control and show, will show the effects of all of these knobs. So it will show what the compression knob does to it, and any effects on the EQ, and that's going to affect your PFL level, your gain setting level. So we'll do that now. So I'm going to activate this channel, and I start with the gain all the way down on that channel, and I'll slowly turn it up as I'm using the channel, checking the microphone, until the meter goes up to 0. That's where I really want it. It's okay if it comes up above it into 2, maybe even 5. You just don't want it to be clipping. This will cause distortion, and it's not ideal. So you really want it between 0 and 2. If it just peaks above 2, maybe even gets to 5 with a strong signal, a heavy guitarist, that's fine. But really I'm trying to go for 0. I'm trying to get everything on 0, so I want my vocals at 0. I want my guitar at 0, and then we'll be ready to set up the channels. So this is the first stage in setting up the channels, is going to be the gain setting. So first I'm going to gain stage the microphone. So I'm going to talk into the microphone and slowly turn up the gain staging, or the gain, to get it where I want. Now notice that I have my channels muted, so I'm not sending any signal out to the house or even to my monitors. I have everything turned down. My aux send is turned all the way down. So I'm not sending any signal anywhere. It's just quiet, and I can stage the gain by doing this without actually outputting any signal to the house. So you really don't have to test out your sound while you're gain staging and let everybody hear what you're doing. You can just check this on your board. I do say that not all boards are going to have PFL metering like this. Some smaller boards may not have your meter, but they should have a gain staging light, and it may just be an LED like this, where you basically want to turn up the gain until the light starts blinking. When it starts blinking, that means it's good, and you'll have to go from there. It's not going to be nearly as accurate as this, but it will work. So if you have something with just an LED on per channel, just use the gain light or the clip light until the clip light comes up green. If the clip light is getting red, that is to say that you have too much gain and you need to back down. It's okay if it blinks red occasionally, but you don't want it to blink red all the time. Okay. So we're going to try to maximize what we got here, and let's see if we can get the levels up to 0. Here we go. Checking, 1, 2, check, test. Hey, hey, hey. So you see when I talk very loudly, and put a lot of sound pressure levels into the microphone at a normal vocal level, and I'm right up against the microphone here, as you can see. But when I talk just on the microphone, it's not very loud, and that's okay. I want to get it pretty way up to 2, so when I sing really, really loud, it's not going to overdo the gain and clip. So that's pretty good there. So we'll stop with that, and you see that I've turned the gain up. I don't know. I say about 1:30, 2 o'clock. That's what it takes for this microphone. So now I'm going to apply the compression. I've found that these one knob compressions work really well at about 30%, 20 to 40%, something like that. What a compressor does is it basically balances the signal by bringing up the lows, and I don't mean low frequency, low volume signals. It'll bring those up, and it's going to diminish peak frequencies and bring those down. So the volume of the low sounds is going to be higher, and the higher volumes are going to be down a little bit. So maybe some piercing notes, or when you get too close to the microphone, it's going to bring that down a little bit. So it just makes things a little bit even. They call that compression. So it's compressing it on the upper side, and it's pulling the lows up. So I find that about 20 to 40% is pretty good. You have to play with that on your own board if you have that. I have the low cut function. Low cut is a high pass filter. On this particular board, it's going to cut out frequencies below 75 hertz at a slope of 18 decibels per octave. So after every octave below 75 hertz, it's going to cut it by 18 dB. So that gives you the slope or the reduction rate after 75 hertz. I typically have this turned on higher instruments, even my vocals, because I don't want necessarily the woofiness coming out of my vocals, so I'm going to have that off. I will allow it to come through on the guitar because that's going to give me some bass sounds as I play solo. Just a guitar, I want the bass sounds from the guitar, and they're not too bad. I can also use the EQ to bring down the bass where I want it. So I usually use the high pass filter on higher instruments. On a bass, a guitar, you might not want to do that. They might have their own thing. But on vocals, I usually use the low cut. It's basically just a high pass filter. So then we go down to the EQ. As far as EQ is concerned, I normally start with it flat. That means I'm not boosting any signal. So when you turn this to the right, it's going to boost the signal. When you turn it to the left, it's going to diminish it. Typically, they say that you want to EQ channels subtractively. That is to say, if you want more highs on the channel, take away the lows. And this is because if you bring up the highs or bring up any of the EQs, it's going to boost that many dB on that particular frequency. And the frequencies are noted here. My low says it's boosting at 80 hertz. My mid is boosting at 2.5 kilohertz. And the high is at 12,000 hertz. So if you boost these, it's going to cause your gain staging to be a little bit higher because you're adding volume. You're adding volume you're adding gain to that particular channel, so it's going to affect this. So that's why they say subtractively EQ, and then you can compensate on the lows with this. Even if you subtractively EQ, you can also turn up the gain, or if you want to turn up the EQs, you can turn down the gain accordingly. But just be aware, when you boost the EQ, it is going to boost the signal, and it may be a little bit louder than you want. So you might have to adjust accordingly. All right, next up are your aux sends. So the aux sends, I have aux 1 and aux 2. On this particular board, the aux 2, the orange one, is my effects channel, so I will be using the onboard effects. You don't have to do this. You can send the aux 2 to anything you want. Likewise, you can send the aux 1 to any other device and output. We have aux 1 sends. I told you I was sending the aux 1 into the monitor. The aux 2 I'm not going to be using. I'll be using the onboard effects in this case. And your mixer board may also come with a pre button. So the pre button means that this knob is going to affect the level of that channel pre-fader. And this is ideal for monitoring, because if I don't want the fader level to affect the levels in my monitors, I want to just set the levels in my monitors. I might want to set these up differently than I have them coming out on the house. Maybe I want more vocals than I want guitar, but in the house mix I want them fairly balanced. So I can adjust how much vocals is coming out here without having as much guitar coming out. And that way it's not going to affect it with the fader. So if you push the pre button down, and I do have them activated because I want this channel to be monitoring, so that's ideal for monitoring, is to have this pre. That way this knob will affect it pre-fader. That means when you move the fader, it's not going to affect what's being sent to the aux 1 channel. This pre-fader on my board does not affect, however, the aux 2, so the aux 2 signal will be affected by the fader level. Okay, next up we have the pan knob. The pan knob is going to be able to adjust whether you send the signal to the left channel or to the right channel. I'm not doing anything special today, so I just leave them straight up in the middle. Then you have a mute button. The mute button is going to mute the channel. In this case, on this board, it doesn't actually mute the channel. It sends it to an alt 3/4, which is an alternate output. But if you don't have anything hooked up to the alternate output, it will be like muting the channel. Here we have the solo button. Again, the solo button is for pre-fader level metering, and it is also to solo that channel if you're monitoring the channel through the through the headphone jack or the control room jack, in this case the phone jack. If the band was playing and I was mixing down 4 signals, and let's say I wanted to only hear channel 1 and 3, I could solo both of these out, and then I would just get those signals coming out of the headphones. So basically it mutes everything except these. And I could hear just one channel if I wanted to, or just hear both channels so I can see what they sound like individually, even while all of the other instruments are playing. So that's what solo does. It just solos that particular channel out, and you can solo all of them. In this case, I don't mess with the solo. I just use it for gain staging, so I just leave the PFL on. And then you have the fader. So the fader is going to control the output of that channel that's being sent to the main mix and or the alt 3/4 mixes. I won't be using these, I'll just be using the main mix, and I'm just using the left channel because I'm not using the right, so I'll just be using this one fader to control my output to my main speaker. So typically you want to run these at unity, if possible. I like to run my signals at unity. Means you're running it at 0. So that's it's not reducing the signal, nor is it boosting it. I'm letting it come in with the processing, and I'm not trying to adjust the signal that much. I'm letting the natural effects of the instrument. I've already tried to maximize what I've gotten coming in. I've tried to get that as close to 0 as possible, so I'm not trying to adjust this. So when I first try it out, I'm going to try this out at 0, and then once I have them all mixed, then I'm going to use my main slider to affect how much I'm letting out into the house or into my speakers. So typically I'm going to try to run these as close to unity as possible. Now for a typical mix, I'm not going to run them exactly at unity because I do want a little bit of subtlety going on. For instance, when I run my main mix, I always have my vocals a little bit higher than my guitar. And so I might run them something like this, just depending on what I like for that day, the acoustics of the room. There are many different factors that will determine how you do this, but basically know that this scale that's on these boards on the fader is logarithmic, meaning if you're trying to control if you have a lot of gain coming up and it's really loud and you didn't gain stage it and you're getting plus 10 dB here, then you may only be able to pull up your fader like this, but you're not going to have much control because just moving it up just a little bit is going to go from, you can see the scales here, it goes from negative 60 dB to negative 40 in just a very little space. But up here at the top, it goes from 10 dB to 0 over this large distance. So you have much more control as the closer you get to unity. So I can make very subtle changes by just moving it up and down here, as opposed to trying to run them down here. And this is why you want to try to run it at unity, because this is a logarithmic scale. Okay, so that's basically it. So we've got this staged up. So now we'll see. I've got the mic staged, and now we're going to get the guitar staged same way. So I'm going to take the guitar, and I'm going to push the fader level down on that channel. And I'm just holding the camera and strumming, so I know this is probably not going to sound very good because I can't hold the chord and the camera at the same time, but alright, so I'm going to turn up the gain a little bit. And in this case, I can't play and turn it up, so I'm going to turn it up some and just see what happens there. Alright, so you see there it's want a little bit more out of it. So I'm going to turn it up maybe 12 o'clock. There we go. That's pretty close. See there, when I hit it really hard, it tends to go up to 2, and that'll be okay. Because if I'm always going to play that hard, it might be a little bit loud. I might bring it down just a little bit. And there we've done gauge staging on that channel. So now we can turn that PFL off, that solo button down. And I said the EQs are up to you. I'm going to leave them flat for here. And now we can check out our monitor signal. So on the monitor, so this aux1 is going to control how much of this channel I'm sending into the aux1. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this up to, my unity is going to be 0 for me at the very top at 12 o'clock. So I'm going to turn this a little bit short of unity. I'm going to turn the vocals close to unity. And this one a little bit shy because I do want more vocals than that coming out. And now we can turn up the main aux send. This is going to control the main aux send. You see it says aux send. I can also see how much is coming into these channels using the solo, same way. But we're going to turn this up slightly, and now you can hear that it's coming out of my monitor. I'm not going to turn it up too much here because I don't want it to feed back. I'm in close distance to it. It's already starting to feed back there, you see. So if you get that feedback like that, that means your monitor is going to be too high. You're not going to be able to run it loud. You can avoid the feedback by taking the not pointing the microphone into the speaker, but this is going to be okay. So just see that that works, and I've set my monitor up. The guitar should also be coming through it. All right. So there we have our monitor set. So I'm going to turn that down for now. No problem. And now we're going to set up some effects. Okay, so we've got the monitor mix set up. Now we can control, now we're going to set up how much is coming out of our mains. So I'm going to turn up my microphone close to unity and unmute the channel. And now I'm going to talk through it, talk through the microphone, and slowly turn up the gain on the mains. Again, I can't turn it up very loud because I have it aimed at me. And so it's going to increase feedback, and I'm in a very small proximity here. It's really close to me. So I'm not going to be able to turn it up in a show where I'm playing for, with this one speaker, I'll play for, I don't know, 50 to 100 people or so. And it's plenty at 0 or at unity. I won't be able to push it up to unity right here because it's going to feed back. But you get the point. So here we are as that, and we can also do this with the guitar. Now the guitar I'm going to run a little bit less than unity, and you can hear that. Okay, so pretty much right there, you're going to have your sound pretty nice. It's going to sound pretty good. Your levels are set. You've got everything mixed well. You can control how much is coming out to the house with this. So you're going to be able to play there. One more thing I want to show you in this video is setting up the effects and what kinds of effects to use. So sometimes you have a choice of either using delay or reverb, and both are good effects. In this case, my board has some onboard effects, and I actually have access to delay and reverb, some combinations effects. So I can use delay plus reverb, and this is ideal. If you don't have this, you'll have to choose what you like. I find that delay gives punchiness to the vocals, so I like delay, and reverb makes things sound spacey. So if you put too much reverb into something, it can also push it back into the mix because it's going to make it sound a little bit spacey. So I feel like delay gives it a little bit of punchiness and puts it on top, and the reverb gives it some space and makes it sound big. So somewhere in between the two. So on my delay, I have a very fast delay. I want like a slap back, like a tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. So I just tapped that in very quickly. So it's tapping, it's going to come at that frequency. So it's going to, the delay is going to work at that frequency that ever you see the light blinking. So it's going to go pretty fast. And I have the reverb set, the parameters I can change. So you can see the parameters I have changed to -9. And that is to say that I found that if I turn it all the way to the left, it's going to have more delay and less reverb. And if I turn it to the right, it's going to have more reverb and less delay. So I want more delay and less reverb typically. So I'm going to use it this way. Some people may want to choose just reverb, or you may want to use just delay, but pretty much those are the two you're going to use. Take your pick. Typically, if I can only choose one, I like delay, so I'll use the delay. I like the way that sounds, but you may like reverb. It's really up to you. But one of the two, or both, choose that. So when you're going to do this, you want to set up each channel how much you want to be sending into the processing for the effects. So each channel, so my vocals, I'm just going to send all of the signal in there. And for the guitar, I'm not going to send quite all of the signal in there. I want a little bit less because I don't want so much effect on the guitar, not as nearly as much as the vocals. So I'm going to turn this maybe like this. And now we can see how much is coming in. So your aux send, this is going to control how much of the signal is sent into the processor, and the return is going to control how much of that signal is then sent either to the main mix or Alt-3-4. In this case, I have it up because I want it sent to the main mix because I want it to be sent to my house system, to my main output. If I wanted to send it to the alt, I'd push that down. So this knob is going to control how much I send to the house or send to my main speaker. So once again, this controls how much you're sending into the processor to be processed. Notice this also has its own PFL light, or this own metering gauge. And it goes up here to clip is at the top, so anywhere below clipping is going to be okay. If you see that I talk into it, you can see that it's sending some signal into there. Yeah, that's going to be okay. And now we are going to turn it up. Actually, if I mute the channel, you'll be able to hear how much is sending, how much effect is coming out without the signal itself, without the dry signal. So you'll hear just the wet signal if I mute the channel. So I mute the channel, and we can't hear any effect coming out because I haven't turned this up. But as I turn this up, you can hear how the effects come out. So this is what the wet signal sounds like after the processing. It's processing, giving it a little bit of delay and reverb. You can see, I can change the processing. I'll turn this up some so you can see how it changes the effect. Up, up. So I find that this is really spacey, and that's why I don't use it like this. It's way too much for me. Let's see. And more this way is even more spacey. You can hear that. I don't really like that at all. I like this setting. It's very nice. Just a little bit in the background. I like the effects to be run where you don't really know if it has effects or not, but it sounds good. If you can really hear it, then it's probably too much. That's just my own metering. That's the way I like to run effects. I like it just enough where they hear it in the background. So understand that this is just the wet signal, not the dry signal. If I unmute it, then we'll get both, and you'll see what it sounds like that. So this is what it's going to sound like with the dry signal plus the effects, and you see it just gives it a little bit of layering. It makes it sound really good as opposed to, I'm going to mute this out, just the dry signal. So this is just dry, and with the effects I get a little bit of, just a little bit of effect going on. It sounds pretty good, I like that. So there you have it. That should get you at least started in a pretty good general direction of how to use your mixer board and get things set up to use it to its best ability so you can sound your best. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks for watching. Till next time.